Hey everyone, welcome back to my shop. I recently joined the Jonathan Katz Moses Build Up Initiative, which pairs woodworkers with disabled woodworkers that need a piece of equipment. And I have been paired up with someone who needs a micro workbench. So I have the plans right here and the cut list, so I'm going to go ahead and prep the material for that and get started. If you're not familiar with the Build Up Initiative, I will leave a link in the description. It's worth a look. I've got everything roughed out. I've got my chop, the black walnut, and I've got the top, and I've got one piece of black walnut here, and I think the rest are pecan, and then the legs. I'm just going to start making the individual pieces now. Checking my joiner fence for square. It's the one thing I do consistently now that's really made a difference in the quality of my work, but more importantly, the ease of it. When everything's cutting square, it makes it so much easier on you down the line. And now that the parts are mostly square, I go back to the bandsaw one more time just to cut them pretty close to their final dimensions so I don't have to spend so much time at the planer. I've got everything roughed out. The top is still pretty thick. It needs to get glued up and then brought down to its final dimension. I'll do that later. And then I've got the legs here. I made an extra leg. I noticed that there's a bark inclusion on one of them, so I may or may not use it. I'll choose the best two. And then I got the front and back part of the chop. These are nearly planed down to their final dimensions, but I'll do the rest on the drum sander. I think that's close enough for today. And I'll finish dimensioning them tomorrow. And I'll glue up the top tomorrow. Don't get up. I'll take care of all this. Well, today turned into more housekeeping than woodworking, but I don't know what to do with the sawdust, so I put it around my trees. I put some in my compost. I don't know. What do you guys do with your sawdust? Let me know in the comments. I also took care of my scrap wood, and I'll put that in bins, and we'll burn it this winter. Anywho, let's get this top. We'll get a few of these pieces glued up. I'm going to put this aside for now. Need to dry for a day here before I finish it off. And I'm going to work on the sides and the chop. This is the leg that's got the bark inclusion on it, but it's got some really nice curl here on the other side. So I am going to use this piece because it looks really nice. So I'm going to get these cut to their final dimensions. I've got the legs down to their final dimensions, and I also got the chop down to their final dimensions as well. The forward and aft part, and did I say aft? Looks like I'm back on the ship. The forward and back part of the chop are also to their final dimensions. And same again, I just took it to the bandsaw, made it a little bit thinner so I didn't have to spend so much time on the planer, and then just took it down to its final dimension on the sander. I gotta let the glue dry on the top just overnight, and then tomorrow I'll get that to its final dimension, and then it needs a rabbet, and then I'll start fitting things together. Our glue should be dry, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape the excess off, and we'll cut it down to size, and then we need to put a couple of rebates or rabbets into it for the feet or the legs. To bring the top to its final dimension, I need to switch from a ripping blade over to more of a cross-cutting blade, since I'll be going across the grain. So I need to swap out this blade, and when I'm adjusting my fence and measuring tape, I always use my 1-2-3 block. I find it easier and faster than using a tape measure. Before I put the rabbet or the rebate onto the bottom of the top, I'm going to get it down to its final thickness on the drum sander. It ended up being just a little bit thicker than what the drawings called for, but I can compensate for that when I cut the rebates. The important thing here was that the drum sander made it all flat. I've got my top here, and I've got one of the legs, and I've just transferred the line of the edge of the leg onto the top. And I only need to do the one side because I'll just flip it 180 as I'm running it across my dado stack, and I will just kind of sneak up on that line. We're making progress. I'm going to start marking it up now so that the parts are in the same orientation they're going to stay in. And I'm going to put some marks down for the dominoes that are going to hold the top to the legs. The legs will also get a bit of shape to them in case you want to either bolt it or clamp it to a top. So I'm going to mark that so I know where to start my taper. I've added just a piece of wood here behind just to give a bit more surface area for the jig to press on. So the domino has 3 settings. That right there is a perfect fit for the domino, for the blade coming out. 2 is a little sloppy, and 3 is really sloppy. So I went perfect fit on the middle one and just a little sloppy on the 2 outside ones, because I honestly don't think I could get it to fit in all 3, or get all 3 of them to match up between the top and the legs. I've got the paper template for the shape for the back of the legs and the wider or the back part of the chop, and I think I'm just going to make a wooden template out of some scrap, and then I can either use a template bit or not. and just go from there. See where we go. I just used a spray adhesive to stick the paper to my piece of wood, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out now. Got my template done, and now I just need to transfer it over to the legs. That's painful to watch, and I cut the worst of it out because I was cursing like a pirate. I've been playing around with the devil's handiwork here after I was done, and I think the problem was my blade selection. I was using a 10 teeth per inch blade that was cutting on the downstroke, and I swapped over to a 6 teeth per inch blade that cuts on the upstroke, and I had a much better success with that. So I think it was poor blade selection on my part. I started out with the legs clamped together, and it worked okay for the disc sander, but when it came to using it on the spindle sander, it just became easier just to separate them and just sand them individually. Moving along, I want to start getting the chop mounted and drilled. So following the directions, I cut out my template and I used the spray adhesive and I have affixed it to my fixed part of the chop. And then I've just used the appropriate Forstner bits and center punch the holes just by eyeballing them. I'm going to take this over to the drill press. I'll drill this one out, and then I will use it as a template to drill out the movable chop. Then I clamped the two boards together, making sure that they were aligned center to center. Then I used the fixed part of the chop to drill out the movable part of the chop. The holes seem to line up with the fixed part of the vise, so that's nice. This morning I put the same profile as the legs onto the fixed part of the chop, and I made some marks on the chop and the top, and so I just need to use my domino joiner and put those in, take it outside, give everything a little bit of a sand, and then assemble. The directions say that you can use dowels, biscuits, or dominoes, but if you're going to buy a domino joiner, you better use it a lot. This is a nice little micro workbench. It's got the vise on the front, it's got the legs here where you would clamp it down to a table or a bench. I wish I had built something like this 10 years ago rather than waiting to build a full-size workbench. I would probably be a lot further along in my joinery ability. I will be delivering this next month. I'm going to throw in one of these mallets that I made in a previous video. But I think the owner will be very happy with them. Once again, this is part of the Jonathan Katz Moses Build Up initiative, and this is being given away. So the link is in the description. Go have a look at that. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.